Welcome back, everybody, to the 360 Size Up podcast. This podcast is for the industrial emergency services. Like every podcast that we got, we always have some great guests. Today, we've got a large number of people on our panel today to talk about industrial firefighting. It's RTFC, Refinery Terminal Fire Company. I'm going to turn it over to Brian McDonald. He is the CEO of this company. And let's just do some introductions. Brian, I see you've got some of your chiefs, and then we'll just get rolling into this podcast. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, Dan. Appreciate it. I'm Brian McDonald. I'm the CEO of RTFC.
I'm Paul Sweatish, Fire Chief for RTFC.
Jason Burnell, I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for RTFC.
David Dean, Assistant Chief with RTFC.
Riley Maxon, Assistant Chief for RTFC.
David Martinez, Assistant Chief for RTFC.
All right. Looks like we got a lot of brass on here, Brian.
That's everybody.
That's everybody. Hope somebody's watching the fire station.
We got a couple other chiefs, but that's everybody we got on for you.
Awesome. Hey, I just want to set this up on how we got to where we're at today on this podcast. You have a company that provides industrial fire service to a lot of companies. We'll dig into that just a little bit. But the IFC Industrial Fire and Safety section, we like to hit the road and we like to get out there and see what's going on in the industrial world. You were kind enough to bring us into your organization last month and host the IFC Industrial Fire and Safety section. You rolled out the red carpet. It was very impressive. So impressive that I think that there's a message. There's a lot to learn from your company and to share with our 360 Size Up podcast listeners. So again, I appreciate you opening the door up to us, letting us come in and building that relationship and start the network. Brian, if you don't mind, can you just tell us about your company, what you do, the service that you provide, and how long you've existed?
You bet. Yeah, Dan, I just want to reiterate or echo what you just said about the visit. We had a blast when you guys were down. It was a great time. Not only did we get to show you around the fire station, but you also integrated into the team, and you were at the Halloween with Hooks at the Whataburger Field, where we're giving out Halloween candy to kids safely. There's about 4,000, of the community that showed out to that. And so you got a full integration into the organization, and we really enjoyed you and Carrie's visit.
Awesome. Yeah, it was, we've talked a little bit on the phone before we actually had to meet in person, and you have a big following on social media. And that's how I got introduced to your company, what you post and how active you are in the industrial fire service. You were kind enough to send me a book. It's your 75-year anniversary this year. Lots happened between the first year and to where you're at today. So I enjoyed reading the book. I brought it back to our fire department. I kind of had to steal it when I left work today, just to get it out of the fire station so I could borrow it. I'll take it back. What I want to talk about today is what the service that you provide in the industrial fire. This is a little unique. I've been in the fire service for quite a few years, the industrial side for about the last 10 years, 15 years. And what you do is a little unique in the industrial fire world. Can you Can you just share a little bit about what you do, and anybody else that wants to, on your team to talk about it too?
Yeah, I'll give you the history of the organization. We did celebrate, as you just showed, our 75th anniversary this year. The organization was founded after the Texas City fire. It is to this date the largest industrial disaster in the United States, where 528 people unfortunately lost their lives. So at that time, the industry in Corpus Christi, which is where we're headquartered out of, came together and said, what do we need to do to be able to react to this type of incident that occurs for industrial response? And nearly 1 year later, on April 6th of 1948, the Refinery Terminal Fire Company was founded. Started out with volunteer firefighters, and now has grown into from the largest industrial incident to the largest not-for-profit industrial firefighting organization in the United States. We've got about 110 firefighters, 130 employees in the organization, and the services that we offer expand from here all the way out to the east and west coast, and sometimes out of the country. We have 4 really services in the organization. The first one is emergency response for our local members. So we have 23 members, and we cover about 60 facilities. And with that, we have quite a bit of industrial apparatus to be able to support that. We've got 6 foam pumpers, each carry 2,000 gallons apiece. We got 3 foam towers, tallest one 115-foot articulated boom, smallest one 85. We've got 3 going on our 4th now foam tender that carries 4,000 gallons of foam. We've got, of course, a command vehicle. We've got a hose tender that carries 8,000 foot of 7 1/4 inch hose. We've got 5 skid pumps, and we've got 3 dry chem units. We've got 2 450s, a 3,000, and then actually we've got 2 more 1,000s. So all the types of equipment, depending on what type of response. Of our members, we have a variety of members. So we have pet chem, refinery, LNG, or just overall industrial members. So that's our first service, is to respond to those locations with emergency response. And all of our guys do hazmat, rescue, medical, as well as firefighting services. All of our guys that come through our recruit school go through 528 hours of training. And then after that, they get 128 hours a year of recurring training as they keep up not only their certificates, but their muscle memory to be able to respond. So that's the first service. The second one is our training academy. So here in Corpus Christi, we also have a training academy specifically for industrial firefighting training. And so we've got props out there, industrial props, LNG pit. We've got structural as well. And so a number of different props. You were able to be out there and see it. And most of the clients that come here, we train our own people, our own recruit schools. We also train our members. We train people from outside the area. We have people come from Chile or from Canada. And we also go out and train at those locations too. We'll go to Canada and train, or in the East and the West Coast. We'll do some consulting or training there as well. And then the third service we offer are in-plant. So we'll put emergency response groups inside of a facility. We currently have 5 of those right now. The smallest one is a 3-man crew that mans the local fireboat. So that's 9 firefighters. And the largest one we have is up in Sabine Pass, Louisiana, where we have an 8-man crew. That's 24 firefighters and a chief inside that facility, where we perform all their emergency response services, or where they're primary, where they additionally have their own ERTs. And then we do all the inspection, testing, and maintenance at those facilities while we're on duty. So that's where a lot of the value comes from. That third party doesn't need to do that anymore. Our folks do that. And then the last line is consulting work, where we'll go out and do consulting work all the way to East Coast, West Coast, where we'll come out where we have expertise, areas where we have expertise in fire protection services. So those are the 3 business lines of the organization and how it's grown, if you will, over the years. As far as our board member, we're set up with a 6-member board that's all of industry. So we have Valero, Flint Hills, Citgo, Lyondell, Basell, Enbridge, and the Port of Corpus Christi that are on the board of the organization that give direction in terms of what they would like to see in additional services, or what they would like to see in terms of additional equipment or training or so forth. So that's how it's governed, and those are all the services that the organization provides.
Yeah, thanks for summarizing that. It's unless you've been to your facility, it's to go through what you just said. It's huge. It's impressive. Your apparatuses are, how many did you say you had?
We have about 20 if you add them all up. But I said that we have 6 foam pumpers and 3 foam towers, 3 going on 4 foam tenders. And then, I mentioned all the 5 skid pumps, the dry chem units. We've got multiple dry chem units, the hose tender, the command vehicle, special vehicle for hardline suction. You name it. All have their specific purpose, whether it's elevated or whether it's, mobile foam, or whether it's a jack of all trades with the foam pumper, that has the medical and the hazmat and the rescue, as well as the firefighting on it.
So you're uh, you're a full-time fire department, full-time dedicated industrial fire department, and you meet the needs of some of your clients, as you just said, is and you named some pretty big hitters on there that are your clients. Uh, if you've never been to the Corpus Christi area, it's I can definitely see how a company like this would be successful in that area. Is it? Where did this start out from, and and at what point in the business did it take off, or has it just been steadily growing, and you're building more clients, or was this just ever sees this as a awesome insurance package when it comes to emergency response?
Yeah, I think, from the beginning, it started from a need in a volunteer group, and the membership is the core of the business. So that's really where it started. And then the growth came in terms of the implants and the training academy, and then the consulting services. So it kind of grew along those lines. And the implants are very helpful if they're in this particular area as well, because it gives us quite a few more off-shift firefighters that can respond to a main station response as well. So it's really a win-win for our clients and for the area. The area has always been a heavy industrial area. The Port of Corpus Christi moves a lot of export product. I believe on their website it claims that they're the largest port in the U.S. based on revenue tonnage, and the nation's largest export terminal. So they move a lot of crude and LNG and other products out of this area through this port. And so it's important that you have the cavalry when you have a bad day. A number of our clients have their own emergency response teams that are, operators that are trained, and they're very good, and they have some of their own equipment. But at the end of the day, if they have an incident where they need some help, or if they're a tank farm and they really don't have, an ERT, that's where it really pays dividends to have the membership where we can respond out. And every member that we have, a file on them, and we've done plans for their facilities. So we familiarize our people with the facilities, our guys train with their guys, and then we know what products are where, and so and we do drills with them. So all of those things make it a unified, cohesive response. There's nothing really wrong with mutual aid, but this is kind of a step better in it, that you don't have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. You have one organization that's responding with all those apparatus and all those trained employees that have been brought up through the same culture and all have worked together and know how to operate the apparatus and know how to manage and work on these incidents. And they got a lot of experience in doing that because when you have 60 facilities, that gives you some opportunities, more opportunities than you'd have if you were in your own facility and just responding to whatever incident you had there.
Thank you. Hey, my next question, I don't know who I'm not going to give it to anybody, but just give me a normal day. You show up at work, and what's a day look like for your oncoming shift?
That's for the fire chief. Let's let Chief Swedish do that one.
Yeah, well, I'll appoint Chief Burnell. He oversees operations for RTFC here in the Corpus Christi area. So that's his day-to-day job, to oversee that.
So when you said you got 110 firefighters, and that's over 3 shifts, is that your model?
Yes, we work at 24/48, and that's between the Port Arthur area and the Corpus Christi area. In the Corpus Christi area, we have about 70 firefighters, and in the Port Arthur, we have the remaining part of that. But Chief Burnell will be able to talk about what a day consists of here at the organization, whether you're an implant or the main station.
Sounds good.
Okay. Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's 2 different concepts, although they both perform the same service. If we have one operation that's at the main station travels anywhere, have a member company, and then we have an implant operation, such as Chief Dean. He oversees an implant on the north side of the bay. But depending on where your location is will determine on what your day-to-day activity is. The thing that's really consistent with us is, even though the facilities are different, the jobs that we do or that we perform consistent amongst all the implants. The only difference, main station, when your day starts out, you do your morning lineup. The captain checks every one of his firefighters, and then he does a credential check, make sure everybody's good, ready to go. And then we start and do apparatus check. We do that. Our time goes from 07 to 07. That's our 24 hours. And so every morning, the apparatus has to be checked for response readiness on our first out vehicles. After that's done, they do a safety briefing once we know our vehicle ready to go, and then the day starts as far as work-related activity. At the main station, because we have so many apparatus and all the chiefs, or a majority of the chiefs' office out of the admin building here, they get a lot of interaction on a daily basis. They have things they have to do every day for each piece of equipment. And then, of course, the officer has a lot of projects that the firefighters do for the company daily. And then once that's completed, whenever their day is done, in that 24-hour period, around 17, 18, 1900, then the firefighters have a downtime short of an emergency. As far as implant goes, so I started in 98, and our implant at that facility with 7-man crews. And so we took care of all the inspection, testing, maintenance. Well, that has carried, actually, Chief Dean was implant firefighter at one of our member companies. And what we started in 95 is the same thing we do. Chief Dean's the newest implant that we do in 2023. It's the same. Our routine, our rote memory, our culture of how we run our days has not changed in terms of expectation and delivery in the last, since we started implants at 95. Chief Dean would be able to speak directly on what an implant is, since he does that currently. Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell us about implants, Chief.
Sure. Like what's previously been stated, we do fire hazmat medical rescue is primarily why we're there. And then in the implants, we do the inspection, testing, maintenance of the fire suppression equipment at that facility. On top of that, we also will do some IH work. So we'll do some monitoring for them, whether it's an emergency or just an odor complaint or preventive type maintenance. We'll also take part in their benzene monitoring program. So anything that's IH related, we can get tied into that. Some other activities that we do, if the client requests a specialty, like spill response, long as the client trains us into that activity, then we'll be able to help them out with that. So we're kind of, one of the good things about RTFC is we're very flexible. One of the bad things about RTFC is we're very flexible. So, whatever our member needs are, we're here to support those needs and to be a valuable resource to them. So that's our implant model and what we do.
Yeah, and you did a good job of explaining that. Thanks.
Sure.
So one of the things that I could definitely see would be a challenge, and it looked like when I was there that you definitely had that taken care of, was the communication side of it. So you've got all these different organizations that you have to respond to, dispatching, getting in those calls and getting people quickly to respond. How does all that tie back into your organization, and how do you deal with that? And I don't care who answers it. Who's mine?
You're muted, Chief.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
So
You were muted on the communications question, Chief. So, I mean,
how we do that is as the members come on or they grow, we go out and we'll do a walkthrough with them and pre-plan, whether it's a fire pre-plan, rescue pre-plan, or anything like that. And so we have all that documentation, like Brian kind of mentioned earlier, is we'll have all that documentation. And the way that works is we'll put that with our dispatcher. She'll keep track of that. And when a call does come in and she asks the question, she gets the information of the incident, she's able to communicate that with the responding group and the responding chiefs with that. So that's how we kind of address that per individual facility. Of course, like we all know, every facility is different. Everybody runs their command structure different. And that's where we gain a lot of our knowledge or expertise, is because we're working with so many different organizations out there. And I feel that's very positive for our guys because they learn not just one way.
Awesome.
And Chief, if I could just add in that too, Dan, is that our dispatch, you got to see it, you and Carrie see it, but so our dispatch is independent from local, it's called COM, but local being 911. We dispatch ourselves. So our dispatchers receive a call from one of our members. They capture the information that the fire chief was talking about, and then they read the message out. They dispatch our own firefighters. So we don't go through the city. We don't go through what we call MetroCom. Another thing we do that is different than typical or municipal departments, at least around here, is we don't run on an 800 system when we dispatch or when we have radio communication. So we're able to talk through a cellular-based service without our radio traffic being monitored by actually any person or any agency. So we're free to have our dialogue without it being listened to by other people. That's very helpful for us.
Thanks for sharing that. Another question I got is the ranking system. It sounds to me like a lot of your model, the way you do operations is mimics a municipality quite a bit. Is the ranking system in your department, is it the same way, or is it a little bit different? I would imagine on the industrial side, meeting the customer's needs, that you may have a little bit of a different ranking system. So just curious about that.
I feel it's pretty much like the municipal side as far as the rank structure. Like I said, Brian, CEO, and, from the fire chief all the way down to the deputy fire chief, the assistant fire chief, and the division chief. And then as our shifts operate, we have our typical is a 5-man crew, which operates a captain, firefighter 2, which is the driver operator of the vehicle, of the apparatus, and then 3 firefighters. That's our typical response. That's our typical shift. One of our facilities run a ambulance, and they have a paramedic that does that and supports the ambulance. But that's a typical shift, and that's our typical structure within the organization.
Okay. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about training. You talked earlier, Brian, about how many training hours that you put in, which is obviously in our world, training is a huge part of what we do, and also our budget. When you do a recruit class, and I saw this on your on social media, can you talk a little bit about what when someone comes into your organization and they're a new recruit, what that looks like and what you're looking for?
Yeah, we'll lend that over to Chief Maxon. He's the chief over our training academy, and he's got a recruit school going on right now. It's Recruit School 38, and Chief Swedish, who's been here 33 years, was in Recruit School 4.
Wow, a few years behind you there, Chief Swedish.
Yes, sir. So Chief Dean touched on it a little bit. As far as what our clients want is what we'll get our guys up to in standard, and we'll perform those emergency response roles. So we're a paramilitary organization, and I think we've caught a few people off guard. We have started doing a little bit of we call it a meet and greet, where we kind of let people know what they're getting into before we actually hire them. We bring them in and let them know, hey, we are, a very strict, rigid organization, and we hold you accountable for that. And we want you to know what our expectations are before we let you in and become a recruit. While they're a recruit, we pay for their training, we pay their wages. So that sets us apart a little bit from other facilities or other academies where you might actually be going through and not receiving any wage. And not only do they receive a wage, they receive a decent wage while they're going through as a recruit. They also receive all their benefits as if they were a full-time employee already established with us. They are full-time as a recruit. It's a minimum of 40-hour week. They're usually shooting somewhere around 50 to 55 hours a week. We do PT during recruit school. We start out putting them through rescue. So that's one of the first things they're going to go through is high angle and confined space. And then we even do trench rescue as well. That gives us time to get all their bunker gear and stuff ordered, show up, and that way they're ready to fight fire properly when that time comes. So then we push them through another 164 hours of firefighting in recruit school. All of our recruits are TCFP ready when they get out, and they're ready to approach the bench of RTFC to meet our benchmark. It's a very long process to get through recruit school. Rarely do we have a recruit school where we start or we end with the same number we started with. So it's not for everyone. I've had a couple of gentlemen in the armed forces come through and say, I did not think we were going back to boot camp. Even though you guys told us that in the meet and greet, that's not what we expected. But they were like, this was a little bit more difficult than boot camp. So it's a refining process.
If you get, and I don't know how often this happens, but if you get a firefighter that comes in that's been trained on the municipal side, does that expedite the process, or do they go through your training academy and they start learning the way you guys do business?
They're going to go through the academy as if they didn't know anything. And that's not to say that they didn't have any prior knowledge. Sure, any kind of knowledge beforehand always helps, especially since we know that they're devoted to being a fireman. It's not a high school kid straight out of high school that doesn't know what he wants to do and just woke up one day and said, I'm going to apply to be a fireman. This person obviously shows the drive and initiative that this is what they want to be and do. But with that said, industrial firefighting is a little bit different or a lot different in some instances from interior firefighting or municipal firefighting. So that's something, a completely different animal, as well as all the additional disciplines on top of a normal fire department. Normal municipal department usually has a rescue tower or, those guys will perform the rescue. There'll be a hazmat crew from another station, whereas all of our guys are going to go through and learn each and every one of those.
I would also
Dan, I think
it's how our culture gets established.
Yeah.
Chief.
That's what I was going to add in is learning our culture. I went through A&M recruit school a few years ago, and I got hired on through RTFC about 6 months after that. And just learning the culture of the organization is probably the biggest part of, being an employee at RTFC.
And I definitely saw that when me and my wife that was there on the visit definitely saw. That's what jumped out at us was the culture. I want to go back, Chief Maxon, on a comment that you just made. You said that industrial firefighting is a lot different. I think I'm quoting you there, a lot different than municipal firefighting. A lot of our listeners are municipal fire. They're emergency responders. I know that there is a big difference on industrial firefighting, but could you just, or anybody that wants to chime in, just when you say it's different, can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Sure. So try to think of an easy way to define it quickly. Industrial firefighting is you're in a refinery setting, you're in an industrial setting, petrochemical. You never know what refinery is going to have an issue or where it's going to come from and what kind of situation you're going to be faced with. It's usually much larger scale. Eventually, like when you have a house fire, I was a volunteer firefighter for a while in one of our small communities. House fires typically burn down, refineries can blow up. That's one of the things that I first learned. And also the fuel load is different. In a house fire, unfortunately, we only save some foundations as a volunteer firefighter. We just, late response, delayed response, and things of that nature. In a refinery, the fuel load, you don't just burn it down and then it's done. The fuel load lasts for days just on a valve that can't be isolated, can't be reached. You're looking at multiple days for a long duration. And short of, rolling up on a house that has a meth lab in it, you don't have those chemicals where you're going to have problems with acid, running through the ground and things of that nature. So industrial fire department, you've got a complex situation that you'll respond to mitigate a variety of hazards just on one scene.
I think that's one of them. And the other thing is the equipment. And you saw our equipment that we deal with is very large, whether it's the pumping capacity or the foam capacity or anything like that. Our pumps pump from draft 4,000 GPMs a minute. Most municipals are 1250 to 1500 GPMs per minute. Most of our nozzles are 6,000 GPM nozzles. Our large nozzles are 6,000 GPM nozzles. Fighting a house fire, that probably wouldn't work very well using a 6,000 GPM nozzle on a house fire. But so the equipment, is designed for the industrial side, along with the pressures. A municipal department will save about 50 pounds of pressure off the municipal system. Our typical pressure is about 150 psi that we'll see coming into the truck. So relief valves and nozzles and just the way the truck is designed for its needs is a big, big difference also.
I'd also say one of the things is every RTFC firefighter is trained in all 4 of the disciplines of emergency response. And not to say that other departments aren't that, but every firefighter that goes through our academy has 4 disciplines, the 4 major disciplines, regardless of where they are at in their career. Going through it today, getting their training is the same stuff the fire chief or any other person did. So we are all able to interact cohesively. We're all being trained the exact same way through our history, and we can all respond to those emergencies and collectively, do our job without one. Well, are you a hazmat tech, or did you just get an awareness, or can you confine space, or did you go through rescue 1 or rescue what exact same thing? At least on our side from an industrial setting.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I see that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but you guys have your own company and you have your own brand. You're working for some pretty big companies that have their own brand, and so you're not just protecting your brand, you're protecting property and someone else's brand. So every time we see one of these big plumes, just like Chief Max and you said that, our stuff in the industrial side, it blows up, houses burn down. When we see that on the news, that big plume is a big part of your job, protecting their brand. And how do you do that? Is that within fire prevention, or where does it start?
Was that question
for anybody?
Yeah. Chief Swedish, if you want to respond to that, and then I can add to it if you want.
So definitely, it's protecting the RTFC brand, as you called it, and then also our member companies brand. We're out there to provide the best service for our member companies and making sure that we mitigate the incident as quick as we can and minimize the impact, whether it's to the community or to the facility itself. Because, of course, time is money. We hear that all the time. And for every minute that they're down, they're losing money. So it's important that we can go in quickly and mitigate that incident as quick as we can for the organization, for the safety of the community, but also for the member company. Yes.
Awesome. Is that one of the reasons that you have implants, is because of that, the time, how quickly it is to get to the hazard or whatever it is that the call that you got?
That's one of the advantages for sure, because at any given time, like Chief Dean out there, any given minute of the day, he's ready to respond with his 6 guys now, and within minutes, literally minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, they're on scene and evaluating what needs to be done.
All right, Brian, you said you want to touch on your brand.
I was just going to say that absolutely, our clients I just wanted to start by probably saying that we talk a lot about our company. We're actually a not-for-profit organization. So this isn't something that, I own or Chief Swedish owns or whatever. It's basically, an organization that's been put together by industry and is funded by industry. It's a cost-sharing cooperative where they all participate and pay their portion, of our expenses, based on their risk profile. So, from our standpoint, we're looking at this in terms of protecting their employees first and then their assets second. And I think that, that's when you look at our clients, what they appreciate with their, sometimes I talked to you before about it being an insurance policy, right? If you're having a bad day, you get the cavalry that can come, is that, when we come in, they know that we have the equipment. We know that all the people are trained. They know that we're familiar with their, facility. We know that they know that we're going to be safe. We just, yesterday had Texas Mutual, she's a workers' comp, or vendor, come in and give us a Platinum Safety Award for being the top 200 of 76,000 customers of theirs. So the top 200 of 76,000, and we have gotten it 13 years in a row. And they have told us that, out of their clients, no one has done 13 years in a row. And I think that's what's really different about this organization that our clients appreciate is the focus on safety. They are not, and that's the difference also with industrial firefighting. Municipal, a lot of times it's going to be how quick can you put the fire out. In industrial, it's going to be how can we do this safely? We know the product's going to keep moving. We know we have to isolate it. So we need to be able to contain it first and then cool around it. And then in some cases, you let it burn until the product's gone, or it's going to come out the other way. It's not like a house fire where, you put water on it, you put it down. When Chief Swedish was talking about the apparatus, exactly, if he took one of his pumpers and threw 4,000 GPM at a house, he'd probably knock the house down. So it's just, when you're putting that against metal structure and you're knowing what you're dealing with, is this an alky unit that has HF in it? So they're always setting up, and I've seen this in action in the time I've been here, they're always setting up plan A, B, C, and D, the contingencies about making sure that they have everything. And the first thing they're doing, of course, is setting up the zones to make sure that everybody's safe. So that's one thing I can say with Chief Swedish and this organization is safety is at the forefront of everything they do. And that is what our clients appreciate the most. So when we get those comments about their appreciation of the organization, it's usually focused around the paramilitary structure of us shooting for the small targets so we don't have the big issues from a safety standpoint.
Awesome. And congratulations on your award there.
Thank you.
Pretty good. And just what you said, it's in this industry, it's your safety record matters, especially to your clientele. So if you're, and again, this goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. This is your culture. So I'm sure from day one, when they walk into your organization, that that's part of your culture is everybody goes home and no one gets hurt. So it's pretty awesome. Hey, as we start to wrap up here, I just want to, as we talked about when we were there, to how we got to this point with this podcast. We were actually going to do this podcast at your site. We thought we could do it in an hour after me being there and seeing exactly what you do, your resources, and what you offer to your clients. I knew right out there that, hey, this was not an hour podcast. This is going to be a series. This is the first of probably 3 or 4 of our series. The next podcast, we'd like to get into some training, want to talk about culture. And then we'll definitely be talking about leadership in one of these podcasts. That's one thing that I really, that jumped out to me is, you things like this just don't happen. What you've put together, safety records, that's all leadership. And that's one thing that I think our listeners would definitely want to hear about and definitely add value to, is just how you lead and how you get people to, to buy into your mission and your values. So I want to thank everybody that's on the podcast today. But again, this was the first podcast of probably 3, 4, 5, who knows, until we get it done. But Chiefs, Brian, I really appreciate the time that you spent today. The book, where can we get the book at, Chief? And how can people contact you if they want to know more about your company and maybe just kind of pick your brain on how you do things?
You can look us up online, rtfc.org. And the book, Brian, they can get the book on Amazon.
That's right. You go on to Amazon and you just look up the book about RTFC or 75 years of RTFC. You'll find it there. And 100% of the net proceeds are donated to first responders. So none of the benefits from this book is coming to anybody but first responders. So it is a very interesting book. It's a great coffee table book. It's set up, with pictures and with captions. So if you're not a big reader, like unfortunately I'm not, you can just thumb through and somebody that's sitting at your coffee table can pick it up and look at the pictures all the way back from, the start in 48 or 47 with the Texas City fire, all the way to today to see the kind of difference in terms of equipment and the progression of the industry.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And, I appreciate what you do. As I drove into Corpus Christi, me and my wife, I understand, the hazards and, it's just distillation columns, piping, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to keep that stuff in the pipes and keep it from blowing up. And a lot of that comes from your organization. So again, I appreciate the time today. Look forward to the next podcast. For all of our listeners, this podcast will be on YouTube, and it'll also be on many other podcast outlets. So again, appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Until next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.